I should have seen it coming. In hindsight, the signs were all there, right in front of me, practically screaming for my attention. But when you're blinded by the familiar warmth of family gatherings and the laughter shared over holiday dinners, you tend to ignore the subtle hints. You tell yourself it's nothing, just small things not worth your concern. But those small things piled up, and before I knew it, I found myself at the brink of losing everything, or so they thought. My name is Nathaniel Adams, Nate to the few people who are close to me, and I've always been the black sheep of the Adams family, the outsider, the one who took an unconventional path while the rest of the family played by the rulebook. The Adams were a family of pedigree and wealth, bound by generations of carefully managed investments, land holdings, and most importantly, the family trust, an empire that practically fueled the lavish lifestyles of my cousins, uncles, and even a few distant relatives. My father, William Adams, was the family visionary, the mastermind behind the recent growth of our fortune. But after he passed, things changed. It wasn't immediate. When Dad died, I found solace in the little things, my modest apartment, my tiny consulting firm, and the quiet memories of the man who taught me that success wasn't about dollars and status, but integrity and hard work. The rest of the family mourned him in a more performative way, with grand speeches and somber expressions that lasted just long enough for the reporters to capture the perfect shot. I should have known then that I would be on my own. It all started to unravel at Aunt Margaret's birthday party. The whole extended family gathered in her opulent estate, a sprawling mansion adorned with rare art and chandeliers that seemed to drip with wealth. I watched from the corner, nursing a glass of scotch, when my cousin Lawrence sidled up next to me. Lawrence was the golden child, slick, charming, with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He was always the one who had to be the best at everything, and the one who always reminded me I was second best. "Nate," Lawrence said, flashing that hollow smile, "heard your business isn't doing so well these days." I raised an eyebrow. "It's doing fine, Lawrence. Thanks for the concern." He shrugged, his eyes narrowing as if he were scanning me for a weakness. "Fine isn't exactly thriving, but hey, if you ever need a hand, you know the family is here." I nodded, feeling the coldness in his tone. It was more of a reminder of my dependence on the family wealth than a genuine offer of help. The way he emphasized the family told me everything. I wasn't truly part of their inner circle, not since Dad was gone. That night, I overheard Lawrence and Aunt Margaret whispering in the study. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but something about the tension in their voices caught my attention. Standing just outside the door, I heard the words that would change everything. "He doesn't belong here, Margaret," Lawrence hissed. "He's not contributing. He shouldn't have access to the trust. We need to cut him out. He's just a drain." Aunt Margaret sighed, her voice softening with an edge of agreement. "William always wanted Nate to have his share, but you're right. He doesn't understand how to manage wealth. It's time to do what's best for the family." I quietly walked away, my blood running cold. They were planning to cut me off, to cut me out of the family trust entirely. They wanted to bankrupt me, to strip me of the one safety net I had left from my father's legacy. All because they thought I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't one of them. I took a deep breath and steadied myself. They wanted a fight, they were going to get one. The next few months were a blur of polite conversations and forced smiles. I knew they were waiting for the right moment to strike, to pull the rug out from under me when I least expected it. They didn't know that I had heard everything. They didn't know that, for once, I was prepared. My father had always taught me that real power wasn't about control. It was about understanding people, their motives, and their weaknesses. And so, I watched and I waited. I delved into the old family records, piecing together every financial move the trust had made in the last decade. I found discrepancies, tiny ones, buried deep in the paperwork. Money moved into accounts that didn't exist, investments that were never made. It didn't take long to realize that Lawrence had been siphoning money from the trust for years, using his position to make himself even richer at the expense of the rest of us. That was my first ace. The second one came from my father himself. My dad was always meticulous, always planning for the worst-case scenario. I had inherited not only his will, but also a letter, one that detailed the true structure of the family trust. Contrary to what everyone believed, Lawrence didn't control it. Aunt Margaret didn't control it. The truth was, the power rested with me. My father had made sure of it, trusting me to protect the family's legacy from the very people who sought to exploit it. I remember the day I decided to act. The family had gathered at the law firm to discuss the restructuring of the trust, a nice way of saying they were planning to vote me out. I showed up in a crisp navy suit, my father's watch on my wrist, a calm smile playing on my lips. Lawrence sat at the head of the table, Aunt Margaret beside him, the lawyer shuffling papers before us. "Nathaniel," Lawrence began, his voice dripping with faux sympathy, "we've decided that, given your lack of involvement in the family's financial matters, it might be best if you relinquished your stake in the trust." Aunt Margaret gave me a tight smile. "It's nothing personal, dear. It's just business." I nodded slowly, as if considering their words. Then I leaned back, my eyes locking with Lawrence's. "You know, Lawrence, I've been thinking a lot about the family trust lately, about how it's managed, about who's really in control." I paused, letting the tension thicken. "And it turns out the power isn't where you think it is." I pulled out the letter, sliding it across the table to the lawyer. His eyes widened as he read, his gaze darting back to me. This changes everything," he stammered. Lawrence's smile faltered. "What is this?" I met his eyes, my voice steady. "It's the original terms of the trust, drafted by my father. He made me the primary trustee, Lawrence. Not you, not Aunt Margaret. Me." The room fell silent, the color draining from Lawrence's face. Aunt Margaret's mouth opened and closed, her shock palpable. I continued, my voice calm but laced with the steel of years of quiet resentment. "I've also found some rather interesting discrepancies in the trust's finances. Money that's gone missing, accounts that don't add up. Care to explain, Lawrence?" He sputtered, his confidence crumbling. You don't know what you're talking about." I leaned forward, my eyes never leaving his. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been stealing from the family for years. And now, it's over." The lawyer cleared his throat, his gaze shifting uncomfortably. "Legally, Nathaniel is correct. As the primary trustee, he has the authority to make all decisions regarding the trust." Lawrence's face twisted in rage. "You can't do this! You think you can just walk in here and take everything?" I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from years of being underestimated. "I'm not taking anything, Lawrence. I'm protecting what my father built, and I'm making sure people like you can't exploit it any longer." The aftermath was swift. Lawrence was removed from his position, his access to the trust completely cut off. Aunt Margaret tried to reason with me, her voice dripping with insincere affection, but I had no interest in her excuses. They had tried to destroy me out of spite, to bankrupt me simply because I didn't fit their mold. They had no idea that I held all the cards. The real twist, though, came a few weeks later. I had been going through my father's old files when I found something unexpected, a series of letters between my father and a woman named Evelyn. They spoke of a child, one that had been given up for adoption years ago. A child who, as it turned out, was my half-sister. My father had set up a separate fund for her, one that Lawrence had also tried to drain. I knew then what I had to do. I tracked her down, a woman named Emily living a modest life in a small town a few hours away. When I met her, she looked at me with wary eyes, unsure of why a stranger had come knocking on her door. I explained everything, who I was, who our father was, and what had happened to the money that was rightfully hers. She listened in stunned silence, tears welling in her eyes as I handed her the documents that would change her life. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I smiled, a genuine smile this time, because it's what Dad would have wanted, and because it's the right thing to do. Emily hugged me then, a hesitant but grateful embrace that made all the struggles worthwhile. I had spent so long feeling alone, feeling like I didn't belong. But now I had found someone who understood, someone who was just as much a part of my father's legacy as I was. The Addams family might have tried to tear me down, but in the end, they only made me stronger. I had the power, not because of wealth or status, but because I understood what truly mattered: family, integrity, and doing what was right, even when it wasn't easy. And as I stood there with my sister, I knew that the future of the Addams legacy was in good hands. Our hands. And Lawrence, he never saw it coming. He thought he could play me, manipulate me like he had everyone else. But he forgot one simple truth: I was my father's son, and I wasn't about to let anyone take away what he had worked so hard to build. In the end, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, about setting things right. And as I looked at the people who had once tried to destroy me, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. They had lost, not because I had outsmarted them, but because they had underestimated the power of family, real family. I may have been the black sheep, but now I was the shepherd, and I was going to protect my father's legacy, no matter what. The courtroom was filled with an uneasy silence as the gavel fell, echoing against the marble walls. I sat at the long wooden table, my lawyer beside me, feeling the tension that had built over the last few weeks slowly begin to ease. The judge, an older man with tired eyes but a firm presence, peered over his glasses as he spoke. In light of the evidence presented, I hereby declare that the contested assets be returned to the rightful beneficiary, Nathaniel Adams, as per the original terms of the trust. Furthermore, the matter of restitution for misappropriated funds will proceed to a separate hearing. Court is adjourned. Lawrence didn't look at me as he shuffled out of the room, his face pale and tight. His lawyer leaned in, whispering frantically, but Lawrence barely nodded, his gaze fixed straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge the reality of his loss. Aunt Margaret, seated behind him, shot me a glance that was a strange mix of anger and resignation. She had always played her cards close, but now her mask was beginning to crack. I took a deep breath, my hands steady on the table as I stood. My lawyer, a calm, composed woman named Lisa, gave me a small nod of approval. "You did well, Nate," she said. "Now comes the hard part." I nodded. I knew she was right. Winning the court battle was just the beginning. The trust was secure, my father's vision was intact, but the fractures within the family had become deep chasms. I had made enemies of people who had once been my closest relatives, and I knew they wouldn't just fade quietly into the background. Lawrence was too prideful, too ambitious to let this go. I could almost feel his fury simmering beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to lash out. Emily was waiting for me in the hallway, her nervous energy palpable. When she saw me, she rushed forward, her face breaking into a relieved smile. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice a mix of hope and anxiety. I smiled, reaching out to hug her. "We won," I said, my voice soft but confident. "The trust is safe. Dad's legacy is safe." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek as she pulled me closer. "Thank you, Nate," she whispered, "for everything." I held her for a moment, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. In the chaos of the last few months, Emily had become my anchor. We had both been thrust into a world we barely understood, a world of deceit and greed, but together we had weathered the storm. And now, standing there with my sister, I knew that we had something more important than wealth. We had each other. "Let's get out of here," I said, releasing her and giving her a reassuring smile. "We've got a lot of work to do." We walked out of the courthouse, the bright sun momentarily blinding us as we stepped onto the steps. Reporters had gathered, their cameras flashing as they called out my name. I ignored them, keeping my arm around Emily's shoulders as we made our way to the car. The family had tried to strip us of our future, but now we were in control. "So what now?" Emily asked once we were in the car, her eyes scanning my face for answers. I smiled, a sense of determination settling in my chest. "Now we build something new, something Dad would have been proud of. No more greed, no more deceit. We use the trust for what it was meant to do, to help people, to make a difference, and we make sure no one can ever take that away from us." Emily nodded, her expression softening. "I like that," she said. "I think Dad would have too." As we drove away, the courthouse shrinking in the rearview mirror, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, threats from those who still saw me as a threat to their own power. But I wasn't afraid. I had fought too hard, lost too much to back down now. The Adams family had once been a symbol of greed, of power held in the hands of a few, but now it was changing. We were changing. And as long as I had Emily by my side, I knew we could face whatever came next. Lawrence could plot, Aunt Margaret could scheme, but they had underestimated the power of family, real family. They thought they could break me, but they had only made me stronger. And now it was my turn to show them what true strength looked like.